I'd like to begin and just say to everybody how honored and privileged I am to be here. It really is a badge of distinction, and I feel thrilled. But I want to begin by thanking Warren. We've had a wonderful season this year with some very dynamic speakers across the board, from Ed Bastian, Bob Iger, Stephen Estabrook, and today Denise Morrison from Campbell Soup. And we've got one more speaker series coming up. And when you think of that lineup, it really is something special. What Warren has done, Warren has built the top CEO speaker series in America for Boston College. So I'd like to give him a warm round of applause for the work he does. Most people in this room would look at this can and really see a soup. To others, it represents family, home, and good health, and those cherished moments in life that are really, really special. For me, it's memories back in college after football practice, tired, cold, severely beaten, heading back to my dorm, and cooking or warming up the only thing I know how to make, chicken noodle soup. And as of today, this is the only thing that I know how to cook as well, too. So Denise, thank you very much. All of us have Campbell Soup moments, some as real and wholesome as the food in this can. But Campbell's story is not about memories of the past. The real Campbell story is about the future. It's a story of innovation, adaptability, transformation, and a brand that grows stronger with each and every passing day. Today, we are honored to welcome the caretaker of that iconic brand, the president and CEO of Campbell Soup, Denise Morrison. After 25 years in the food business and numerous leadership roles at Campbell's, Denise was promoted the CEO of Campbell Soup in 2011. Since that time, there was some major disruptions in the food ecosystem created by small food startups, determined the way food is both purchased and sold. But rather than being a victim of this disruption, Denise Morrison has been the disruptor. Her company has achieved unprecedented success because of her forward-thinking vision and her leadership. And that vision and leadership has not gone unnoticed. Denise was appointed by President Barack Obama to the Export Council, and she has been named by Fortune and Forbes magazines as one of the most powerful women in business in the United States of America. I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to meet Denise in person 4 years ago. You could say, really, at that point, it was a family connection that brought us together. Let me explain. Back in 2012, I was attending the Business Roundtable in Washington, D.C., where President Barack Obama was delivering an address about the state of the economic affairs. And that address was not pretty in 2012 by any stretch. Directly in front of me were these two women sitting at the same table together. It was clear from the friendly conversation and banter that was going back and forth that they knew each other. And after President Barack Obama finished his address, he stepped off the stage and immediately approached Denise Morrison and the young woman right next to Denise. He put his hand out and said, "Denise, how are you doing? How is your family?" And I'm sitting there thunderstruck. Really? The President of the United States knows this woman? I soon realized that these two women had much more in common than just strong business credentials and friends of the President of the United States. These two women were none other than Denise Morrison and Maggie Wildrotter, the CEO of Frontier Communications, two Fortune 500 CEOs who just happened to be sisters. That was when the Business Roundtable suddenly started to feel more like the family dinner table at the table. Their presence together was an inspiration to all of us. Two sisters who had both shattered the CEO glass ceiling for women everywhere and paved a path of equal opportunity for many, many generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute honor and privilege to introduce you to the CEO of Campbell's, a role model for women, a passionate BC alum, and my good friend, Denise Morrison. Denise.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for your warm introduction and your warm memories. So, it's great to be here in Boston with all of you, friends and new friends. This amazing town always brings back wonderful memories for me. Memories of my time at Boston College. Yes, I'm a screaming eagle. John mentioned my sister Maggie, but I actually have 3 sisters, and we grew up in a very close-knit family in a little beach town called Elberon, New Jersey. So leaving Elberon, New Jersey to come to Boston College was a huge change. And it was a decision greatly influenced by my father's experience at St. Peter's College in New Jersey, also a Jesuit university. He raved about the quality of a Jesuit-inspired education that delivered appreciation of leadership, critical thinking, ethics, and community service. Qualities that I quickly came to realize would serve me well no matter what road I chose after college. So with my entire future in front of me, I left home at 17 and began my collegiate journey. And I learned that I was a bit of a trailblazer, as my class, and I'm dating myself here, was just the second in BC's proud history to admit women to the School of Arts and Sciences. And my sister Maggie, the woman that John just talked about, went to Holy Cross. Right? You can imagine our dinner table with my father at St. Peter's, Maggie at Holy Cross, and me at BC. And to say the least, we were not competitive at all. But you can imagine the highly energized dinner conversation. When I graduated Procter & Gamble, I was fortunate enough to be recruited, graduated Boston College, I was fortunate enough to be recruited by Procter & Gamble as their first woman in sales in the paper division in Boston. So, this is actually the city not only where I got my college education, but where I actually started my career. So, I'm delighted to be here today. I get to take a brief trip down memory lane, one that always evokes the fondest memories of Boston College and my early career, and some of the happiest years of my life. But I'm also honored to have the opportunity to share my thoughts on preparing for the future in a world that has seemingly constant and unpredictable change. A year ago, almost no one would have predicted Brexit. Likewise, very few polls expected Donald Trump would become president of the United States. Talk about unpredictable. The Chicago Cubs actually won the World Series. And what about Super Bowl 51 and our Patriots? Unbelievable, right? I keep telling my team that it can be won in the fourth quarter, right? But all of us in the room recognize that the world is turbulent, fast-moving, and complex. And across every industry and in every organization, the pace of change is unpredictable, unrelenting, and unforgiving, especially for the ill-prepared or the unprepared. You all know the saying that it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. And at times, it's difficult to get your footing in the present. It seems like the earth is literally shifting beneath your feet. But the real question we must ask ourselves, is it possible to prepare for a volatile and uncertain future? In many respects, the future is already here. It's often imperceptible as we move through our daily lives, but if you look closely, the future is in plain sight. You just simply have to pay close enough attention to the signals. And it starts with an understanding of the present and how we arrived at the world we're operating in today. And our present has been molded by a series of powerful forces that have fundamentally altered the business landscape and the food industry. This is what I call the seismic shifts. They include transformative demographic shifts, such as baby boomers giving way to millennials and Generation Z, while the world grows more urbanized and multicultural. They include changing consumer preferences for food with a renewed focus on health and well-being, particularly fresh, natural, and organic food. This is partially in response to health concerns and partially driven by lifestyle choices of aging baby boomers and younger generations who hold widely divergent views on its meaning. They include the lightning fast pace of technology advancements, from digital communications, automation, e-commerce, data analytics, artificial intelligence, to virtual and augmented reality. And as a result, we now stand on the cusp of what Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum called the fourth industrial revolution, where the digital world connects with the physical one to transform business models and operations. And finally, these seismic shifts include profound socioeconomic forces, with a shrinking middle class in mature markets and a burgeoning one in developing markets. These shifts are real. They are deep. Individually, they're substantial, but collectively, they've had a dizzying effect on consumers. And their acceleration and convergence have sown the seeds of systemic distrust that are leading to the rejection of large, established institutions, including media, government, business, and yes, food. Earning and keeping trust needs to be on the top of everyone's to-do list every day, myself included. Regardless of industry or calling, all of us operate in this dynamic environment that requires responsible and responsive leadership. That demands us to be constantly prepared to address change. We all find ourselves in this unfamiliar territory these days, and we live in an interdependent world, no longer governed by linear change. A world being reshaped in ways that simply cannot be viewed or understood in isolation. One thing I know for sure, the future will continue to be more complex and more challenging. But with change and complexity comes opportunity, especially for those who recognize it, recognize the forces at play, and are attuned to them. So, how do organizations anticipate the major shifts that will drive future growth and create value? At Campbell, we believe the answer is strategic foresight. As many of you know, strategic foresight is a process of establishing future-oriented perspectives to help fuel long-term planning, decision-making, and innovation. Foresight is a mindset. It's a journey, but it's also an outcome. Think of it as an advanced radar system, and it's a systemic approach to understanding and anticipating how change is taking place today and how that change will present disruptions and opportunities for our business tomorrow. Foresight forced us to look beyond a typical 5-year horizon and establish well-informed perspectives on opportunities and disruptions driven by the intersection of real food, health, well-being, and technology. guided by our purpose, real food that matters for life's moments, we set out to identify clear and compelling growth opportunities. We gathered and synthesized marketplace, consumer, culinary, and technology trends, along with cultural and ethnographic data. We conducted extensive interviews with futurists, academics, chefs, designers, nutritionists, and anthropologists. This is not the way we used to do business at Campbell's, but it's the way we must do things in the future. Through this process, we evaluated numerous futures. In the end, several truly compelling growth platforms emerged. Some are nearer in opportunities, while others are a bit further out. Today, I'll share some of these strategic foresights that we believe hold the greatest promise for the food industry and for Campbell. They are future commerce, limitless local, and better.me. I'll start with future commerce. As it's been widely discussed, e-commerce is already transforming many industries, including entertainment and apparel. Future commerce will be flexible and fully automated, providing consumers with a convenient, instant, and omnipresent experience. Many of us in this room have e-commerce business or have purchased goods online. However, emerging digital technologies, including artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, and new notions of currency and means of transaction are clearly changing how we acquire food online via mobile devices and in traditional brick and mortar retail context. This will fundamentally alter how consumers interact with and experience brands. Consumers will insist that future commerce be frictionless. Consumer needs will need to be met anytime, anywhere. And everyday grocery staples will automatically be refilled based on consumption habits, purchase data, calendar apps. Through the Internet of Things, connected kitchens will alert consumers if they're running low on broth and when their salad dressing needs to be replenished. At Campbell, of course, we believe the key to those is to make sure it's Bolthouse salad dressing and Swanson broth. That's my only commercial. Sorry. But essentially, this constitutes a new architecture, an always-on shopping environment that provides consumers with an instant gratification that's free of inconvenience and delays. Shopping for and preparing meals will be flexible, fully automated, and even anticipatory. Second, limitless local is a growing movement that embraces smaller and more regional farming and food production models that foster new narratives around quality, community, and place. It will challenge conventional approaches to manufacturing, distribution, and marketing. The change can be characterized as moving from big, slow, and removed to small, safe, agile, and regionally connected. It links networks of small-scale suppliers and modular factories to source ingredients and produce more agilely. With the growth of both urbanization and globalization, consumers are becoming increasingly disconnected from their food. As consumer demand diversifies, this growth platform calls for more local, targeted, and varied product lines that offer authentic stories. This connects consumers to the taste of place, ensures quality, and responds with faster go-to-market innovation. At Campbell's, our purpose, real food that matters for life's moments, and our real food philosophy are closely linked to the limitless local movement. We believe real food is food that we're proud to serve at our own tables. Real food has roots. It should be made with recognizable, desirable ingredients from plants or animals. Real food is prepared with care. It should be crafted using ethical sourcing and sustainable practices that safeguard our natural resources. Real food should be accessible to all. It should always be delicious, safe, and available at a fair price, all three without compromise. And finally, we believe that transparency is the single most important ingredient in the recipe for earning consumer trust. Limitless Local fosters a more intimate relationship with food, where it comes from, how it's made, and who are the people behind it. Finally, the Better.me platform is already emerging. The next frontier in nutrition will be about reconfiguring diets according to individual specific physiology, lifestyle, and health goals. We're all different ages, sizes, shapes, genders, and we all have different lifestyles. We're quickly moving to bespoke diets that enable tailored and informed nutritional food choices. It's this foresight that inspired us to fund a new startup company in Campbell called Habit, founded and led by Neil Grimmer. And Neil is the entrepreneur who started Plum Organic Baby Food, which is a business that Campbell bought. But Habit is positioned at the intersection of health, technology, and food, and is poised to lead the personalized nutrition revolution. It starts with the purchase of an at-home Habit nutrition test kit that's sent to a certified lab. Habit's proprietary and patent-pending approach will then synthesize the data and create a personalized diet. A nutrition coach will help you define your goals, and you can order delicious and nutritious chef-inspired meals that are designed specifically for you. Habit is the ultimate consumer empowerment model to make customized choices that enhance individual health and well-being. Do you think that sounds too far off? There was a time when no one heard about personal trainers or personal shoppers, but today they are routine parts of some people's lives. Think about Habit as your personal nutritionist, eating coach, chef, and concierge food delivery, all wrapped up into one. The Habit team is just a few weeks into its launch, and there's already a waiting list. The service is being tested in the greater San Francisco area. We'll be using this regional launch to test, learn, and optimize the service for scale with an eye on urban centers. It's very early days, but we expect that multiple business models may emerge. And based on our research and the market tests, we believe this approach to personalized nutrition linked to customized, nutritious, delicious snacks and meals will resonate with consumers seeking to live healthier lives. I actually personally put myself through all the components of this program as I went, and it took us 2 years to develop this. I went around to the whole medical community, visited medical schools, people that were working in the area of genomics, et cetera. Just fascinating, but put myself through all the tests. And not only did I misdiagnose my diet, but I was able to completely change it, had the data to measure it, very empowering. And I lost 22 pounds, a bonus. It's really important when you start up a company to make sure it works. But the point is that we go on kicks in this country of diets, one size fits all, high protein, low carbohydrate, low fat, low sugar, whatever. But we're all different. And so intuitively this makes sense. And the science and technology has emerged to the point where you actually can get the data and measure it. So these three foresights should not be viewed in isolation. Each builds upon the other, creating a multiplier effect. And as we pursue these interconnected growth platforms, we're guided by our purpose and our growth agenda, committed to our strategic imperatives, and confident in our ability to define the future of real food. This demands fresh thinking and an ecosystem of innovative partners, and it will require several new models of innovation. Our framework incorporates thoughtful mergers and acquisitions in faster growing spaces, complementing our R&D by leveraging strategic suppliers, expanding our participation in venture capital through Acre Venture Partners by investing in innovative new companies like Juicero, Farmers Business Network, and Back to the Roots, and pursuing innovation incubators and accelerators and launching startups such as Habit. As the writer William Gibson once said, "The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." To truly prepare for the future, you must pay close attention, think beyond typical planning horizons, and above all, do not miss the signals. That's why translating strategic foresight into action is critically important for every organization. For Campbell, it's the single most important thing we can do to drive sustainable, profitable net sales growth in a changing world. And in turn, it will create new opportunities for our employees, lead to more affordable and delicious food for our consumers, and build a better world for our neighbors while driving increased shareholder value for our investors. So, as you embark on your next strategic plan for your organization, take a moment to think beyond your typical horizon. Find the disruptions and opportunities that will help your organization grow and thrive. Whatever the future will bring, it will bring you opportunity if you look for it. Take another moment to reflect on how these changes and disruptions impact other people around you, and think about the importance that in this sea change, that responsive and responsible leadership is critical, leading with good ethics and in service to others. For me, this concept of servant leadership began in my youth and was passed down from my father to his daughters and was more fully developed at my time at Boston College. I continue to use it today as I navigate the exciting and complex issues facing the food industry. Thank you, and now I'll take your questions.
Are there any questions for Denise?
It's an easy crowd.
Peter? Well, thank you very much. That was very, very inspiring. And I would, oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Great.
Hi, my name is Bob Culver, and I've had the occasion to be a chief administrative officer in a couple of big universities who have been dealing with sort of the farm to school issue and represent thousands to hundreds of thousands of your potential, if not existing customers. And the question became, in dealing with the students, how should we be thinking about food? Should we be cultivating a farmer? Should we be cultivating a brand? Should we be cultivating an in-between, such as a farm-to-school kind of operation that's going to send boxes of food home? In your really well-done thought about the future, as I was dealing with students, this question remained really very prominent, and a number of well-known brands would come to us and say, and this was at Yale, so you can understand a lot of people, we want you to make sure that you keep using our brand, that you keep using our delivery system and the like. And then other people who were in this business, like Alice Waters, would say, no, you think we ought to go right to the farmer. Has there been any clarity with you as to how brands will work going forward, as opposed to some of the small startup firms you're talking about that are aggregators that will pick and choose foods and send them to our homes?
I'm not sure I understood exactly the question.
Will people want to buy Campbell's versus buying already packaged, here's what dinner's going to be, here's what lunch is going to be, here's what breakfast is going to be, on a regular and recurring basis?
So in other words, what new food and new opportunities do we put the Campbell brand
Yeah,
on?
and how do you sustain your brand?
Yeah,
when
I
it
look
gets
at our
disabled?
company
Thank
as
you.
a portfolio of brands, because we own, obviously, the Campbell brand. We have Pepperidge Farm. We acquired Bolthouse Farms, Plum Organic, Kelsen, Garden Fresh Gourmet. We have Arnott's in Australia. So we have V8, Prego, Pace. So we have a number of brands. Brands have a promise, and each brand has to be very true to its equity. There are some places where the Campbell brand can't go, but there are also adjacencies where it can. And part of looking at the future and figuring out opportunities is what is the right brand to put on. A case in point, we just introduced a new soup called Well Yes, and we have the Campbell name on it, but it's a signature name. And Well Yes becomes the prominent brand name because we're disrupting ourselves with that particular brand. But the Campbell name in soup obviously spells quality, and so we felt it was an important add. So we'll take each situation individually and assess it.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being with us, Denise. It was a great
Thank you.
talk. I'm Maura Banta from IBM. And I loved your discussion of your habit platform. It actually scares me because I'm pretty sure I have terrible habits. I wonder if it's fair to ask you about the technology that's behind that. So you talked about your visits to all these hospitals, but there has to be some analytics, some cognitive computing.
Yes.
There has to be.
Yes, absolutely advanced analytics, and because what it is, it's a synthesis of data from many sources to create a profile that's literally you, and then there's an interpretation of the components of that profile and how that relates specifically to your diet. So case in point, I thought I should be high protein, low carbohydrate, and I was an absolute carnivore. I ate meat 8 times a week. Nothing could have been further from the truth for me. For me, it was all about vegetables as your main dish and a side of protein, make sure it's fish, not meat. So, just by having that knowledge, and that's in my genetics, and that just by having that knowledge, I was able to make those lifestyle changes and realize how great fish is. So anyway, but it's data science is the underpinning. Yes?
You talked early on about generational change, millennials.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned once, unless I missed it, organic. Mm-hmm. In your thinking about the future, and I say this because my oldest son is an organic farmer.
Oh.
In your thinking about the future, where does organic fit in?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think that organic is definitely a growing part of the food business. In fact, we have a lot of organic food at Campbell's now. It was inspired by our acquisition of Plum Organic baby food, where we literally learned the whole organic supply chain. So kudos to your son, because it literally takes 3 years to make sure a field is pure enough so that it can grow vegetables and fruits organically. I think organic is going more mainstream. I'm hoping that we're a big part of that, because I don't think that organic food should just be for people who can afford to shop in specialty channels. I think that real food, clean label, organic should be available and affordable for everyone. And so I think as that becomes more possible and more part of our menus, then we will start to see that happen. But I do think it will continue to grow.
Hi, I had the pleasure of meeting your sister a few years ago at a conference. Most delightful. My name's Diane Darling. I teach networking. You got noticed because you were a woman. You've been in Joanne Lublin's book because you were a woman. What is the future? How could we now be known for our excellence? I don't mind being known as an excellent woman, but it's interesting that women so often is what we're first known for instead of our skill set.
I had trouble hearing her.
Yeah, can you repeat that?
I just had trouble hearing you up here.
No problem. So the question is, you were noticed by Obama by John because you were a woman. That was the first thing that came up in the conversations. You were in Joanne Lublin's book as a woman. I guess my question is, we talk a lot about women. When do you think, or what do women need to do so we are identified for our excellence and our skills separate from our gender, and not first the gender and then, oh, she happens to be very talented?
Okay, that's a long conversation, but I'll let you know a story that kind of brings what your question is to life. 50% of Campbell's employee base are women, but and that's pretty much at the bottom in the middle of the company. But when you start to get to the director and vice president level, it thins out. And I don't think there's any one silver bullet there. So I decided to mentor personally, which everyone says, you don't have time to do that. I'm like, I'm making time to do it. But personally, the top 20 women in our company, to learn what is this dynamic, what makes them stay, but what also makes them leave. And the insights I have is, first of all, teaching women to have a sense of what is your purpose? Like, what do you stand for? What are your values? And what is your personal mission? So my mission is to serve as a leader, live a balanced life, and apply ethical principles to make a significant difference. And then I have a whole value system that is an underpinning of that. If you're going to lead people, people have to know who you are and what you stand for. So I teach them that. The second thing I teach them is, instead of looking at your career as job to job to job to job, or title to title to title, because titles can also be deceiving, look at your career as building experiences and networks. And so looking at your career horizontally, where have I been, where am I now, what do I want to be? By the way, a lot of people can't answer that. And I say, if you don't know what you want to be, how can anyone help you get there? And you can't do this by yourself. And so that becomes a very strategic approach to a career plan and very empowering for the woman, and also changes the conversation that woman will have with her manager, because her manager has to also help her get there. So that, in a nutshell, is two things I'm working on. I'll let you know if it works.
Hello, I'm Tom Sherwin from CEO Resources. I'm very interested in your description of what you found as you ascended to the CEO's office regarding the willingness of the organization to accept these small embedded growth modules such as habit, and how you have guided the company through what I would guess would be some resistance to accepting them and embracing them.
Can you repeat that again, please?
It's really hard to
It's
hear up
echoing
here.
a little
Yeah.
bit.
Try it again.
Slower?
Slower? So, when you were elected CEO, I would like you to think back to the organization's willingness to accept alternative business models and organizational pods, such as habit. I'm assuming that was not a standard part of the strategy. Now, you have, years later, you describe half a dozen of these initiatives, with habit being the one that stuck in my mind, wondering if there's resistance. There was resistance, and how you've overcome that resistance as the CEO.
Okay, so in our strategy, we say we have to do three things. The first thing we have to do is strengthen our core business, and we're doing that through real food, sustainability, and transparency, and digital and e-commerce. At the same time, we need to expand into faster growing spaces. And the spaces we picked were fresh health and well-being and snacking. Those are two very big consumer behaviors right now. And then finally, build a high performance organization, because you can't do any of this without the right people, talent, and culture. So working on that underpinning to enable it. What's happened as we look at the future and then look at what we have in the present, it's created a situation where we've had to transform the way we work. So we have done a transformation journey where we've had to reorganize the company and then change the way we work, differentiating where we had to be differentiated, and also sharing services where we could be more effective and efficient. And so we believe that the roadmap of keeping a strong core while you expand into faster growing spaces, making strategic choices, and really looking at them over time as what are the best value creating opportunities for the company is the way to keep yourself honest on that one. It's a good question. Thank you.
Over here.
Yeah, so, thank you. Campbell's soup is about as an American brand as any. It's like apple pie. But half the world's population now is Asian. Are you doing something as a global company to go after that market, the other 50% or so of the world?
Yes, thank you for that. We actually have a very large biscuit and snacks business in Australia, Arnott's, and we have plants and operations in Indonesia and Malaysia. So we're literally taking a lot of the biscuit brands in Australia and moving them into Southeast Asia, and we're actually producing them there now. In addition, we bought the Kelsen company out of Denmark. You probably know them as the Royal Dansk Danish butter cookies, but in China, they're known as Kelsens, and it's a huge gifting behavior at Chinese New Year and the Autumn Festival. So we literally, 40% of Kelsen's business is in China. So we literally have been building out a distribution network in major cities using Kelsen, and our intention is to bring our other Pepperidge Farm and Arnott's brands on top of that platform, so we'll have holiday and everyday snacking. So that's basically what we've done. What we learned the hard way in Asia is we tried to go into China with soup, and quite frankly, getting a culture to buy a packaged product when they're used to making soup every day with water and dunking a chicken in it, it just wasn't going to happen, and we were losing money. So we're like, you don't have to teach people how to eat a cookie. So we decided to go with snacking, and we're making money. So yeah, we have a great team over there. They're terrific people.
I've got one question for Denise. I think all of us in business are challenged with the workforce today. You've got some people that argue 3, other people that argue 4 generations in the workforce. They act and think differently, and they desire things differently. How have you addressed that issue at Campbell's, and do you find that a challenge, or do you see that as an opportunity?
Yeah, it is an opportunity because true diversity is diversity of thought, and so bringing different generations to the table will also give you the wisdom of experience coupled with fresh thinking if you can get them to talk together. One of them wants to text and the other one wants to talk on the phone. So we get through all those barriers. But no, I think that it is culturally challenging, but you align people with purpose and values. And it's very interesting, whether it's a core business that we operate or a new business that we've acquired, whether it's a original Campbell employee that's been there for 35 years, and we have a lot of them, or somebody who's been with the company for less than 2, they're passionate about this purpose, and the way they bring it to life is different, but their passion is the same, and so that helps. And then we also have a series of affinity networks for the African American network, the Women of Campbell's, the Latino network, Asian network, which will give different cultural groups in the company a support network, and also the opportunity to network with the key executives. And so we've brought learning and development to all those networks. So we're trying some different things, but it is more complicated than when I started, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank you. We have time for one more question, please. Back here in the end, yeah. Thank you.
This is Stas from the Cambridge Innovation Center. I'm just curious, on the business of providing food in offices, I think we've seen a global trend where that's changed quite a bit, where companies are providing more and more food in offices. Do you see that as a product line that you guys are going to spend some time and resources in?
I can't
hear you.
Sorry, are you going to feed us at work?
At what?
You're going to feed us at work.
I just mean, if you look at Google and others, there's a lot more food being served at the office. So are you going to feed us at work? And what flavor soup?
Okay. Oh, I guess the question is about a food service business?
Feeding at work, providing food at work.
Oh, okay. Well, we have free soup on Friday. I mean, we say, thank God it's soup. No. No, actually, we do have a pretty robust food service business, and 50% of the food dollar is eaten out of home, and so having not only a retail business but a good food service business is really important today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.